I'll ask the team to come up and tell us the benefit of their wide experience. That'll be you. So good morning, and welcome back to the reconvened Coastal Hazards Adaptation Plan hearings. I'd like to welcome staff back to the table to share with us some new information that they have. So I understand you've been busy in the last week or so please tell us what you've come up with.
Kia ora koutou. You had, at the last hearings panel, asked us to go away and talk again to the Wharf Road residents, which we've done, and Crystal will give you a bit of an overview of that meeting, and we've also put forward, as a result of that meeting and the submissions, we received an amended recommendation, which you'll see up there, and Tom will talk to that. Otherwise, we'll take the memo as read.
Cool, so I'll just give a brief update of the meeting. It is all within the memo that you received. So on the 15th of February, we went and met with the Wharf Road residents. 15 people were there. There was also a bunch of children that I didn't count, but they were all there as well. And we had some discussions around what was proposed. Staff gave the advice that we were looking at changing the recommendation to remove closure as the preferred option, and Tom can talk a little bit more about that. There was general positive feedback in the room from the group that they were quite happy with that outcome. We then went and did a site visit down at Wharf Road, and had some discussions around some interim or short-term options that could be done in terms of maintenance for the road to improve the resilience. And there'll be an ongoing relationship with transport and the Wharf Road residents to discuss what those options might look like. We invited the residents to also provide any additional feedback via email if they would like to. So you'll see those attached to the memo as well. There were 5 pieces of individual feedback and then 1 from the group's legal representative. Most of their feedback was around the fact that their long-term preference is for floodproof and protection, but there was just a general agreement in the group that that decision could be made at a later date.
Excellent, thank you. Tom.
Yeah. So I'll speak to, I guess, what was the focus of the last session. So as you'll remember, the recommended or preferred pathway that was put forward for Wharf Road by the Coastal Panel as part of the draft plan was to maintain the road for a period, transition to a lower level of service, and then ultimately close the road in the future. And that estimated time frame was around 35 years from now. Subsequently, from the meeting that we've had with the residents and reflecting on the pathway with our colleagues in transport as well, staff have now recommended that a change to that pathway. What it now looks like is the same in the sort of short to mid-term, with maintenance of the road in the interim, followed by a transition towards a lower level of service. And then what we've done, instead of indicating towards a long-term closure, we've essentially kept the door ajar or open for 3 long-term possibilities. So the floodproofing and protection, which is effectively raising the road, a relocation of the section of road at the head of Port Levy Harbour, and a road closure. So essentially there are 3 long-term possible options that are included in the plan. And that's what we've done in other cases in the draft adaptation plan for Puro, for example, as well. We don't essentially have all the information, all the clarity to make the call now. This will be a decision that will need to be consulted on with future residents of Wharf Road as well. So, yeah, that's what we've put forward.
So I'd just like to say thank you to going out and meeting with the residents. You can't beat going on site and seeing it out of your own eyeballs rather than looking at a TV screen or someone else's point of view, so it's good that you saw it yourself. And you've put an amendment there, which is there. Before we go any further, I'll just ask, is there any questions of staff? Pauline?
Thank you, and yeah, I support that too. Thank you so much for going out and meeting them. I know they really, really appreciated it. When you talk about those 3 long-term options, and that will be future consultation, how long ahead are you thinking that future consultation be? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not like 1 year, 2 years, it's a long way out.
Yeah, so that would be the purpose of our adaptive planning is that we establish these monitoring arrangements that we call signals, triggers and thresholds, which are described in the plan, but effectively they're conditions that would arise well in advance of the road actually needing to be, closed or otherwise managed. So we'd anticipate it would be more like 3 to 5 years, or perhaps even a little bit longer than that. Still plenty of time.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, Timothy?
Just in general, if you're looking at Christchurch as a whole, when would you suspect that we would get a trigger point that would signal that the experts' estimates with sea level rise are accurate or slightly up or down or whatever? Because the work that has been done on the peninsula is outstanding, but as we're a city in debt, and we've got 400,000 people and a lot live on the coast, there comes a point, and I mean none of us will be here, maybe Yarni, but where's that? Is there an idea of a trigger point? Because we have some people that are saying, oh no, it's all higgledy-piggledy, it's not real. Other people are saying, well, we don't want to shift from the coast, and it would be unrealistic for us to ask people to say or refuse them for 80 years out or something. So I'm just confused about when is a trigger point where we will know the future, because as a group of 17 people, we've got to weigh up the amount of money that we have to do things.
Sure. I would suggest it will always be a little bit of a moving feast. There are some things that I can be quite clear on. So we understand from the knowledge that's out there that around about a metre of sea level rise is locked in already from emissions that have already been essentially undertaken. So what that means is that some amount of sea level rise is locked in. We don't know exactly when that amount of sea level rise will occur. But even if everyone turned the lights off, stop emitting now, this is still a problem, a challenge that we'll need to work with moving forwards. But in terms of actually being able to say that's the amount we'll have in the future, that will always be a challenging space, and I don't think we should ever expect to have full clarity or understanding.
But we are saying that we've locked into a metre. So if the sea level rose a metre, I guess my perception, how do we manage that as a city? So, but we need to know a better timeline, I suppose, to kind of promote that to our residents, because people sit there at the moment and say, and we guaranteed a metre. When's it happening? What's it going to happen? It's really hard for a city to manage all these moving pipes, etc. And when's that going to happen? And budgeting.
It's called planning in deep uncertainty.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge. What we can do though is model different scenarios. And so what we are looking at the moment is, with just 20 centimetres of sea level rise, and that's sort of mid-century by most guesses, a lot of our infrastructure, 3.2 billion, will be exposed to sea level rise risk, and 14 billion of private properties, the modelling we're looking at the moment. So while the metre is further away, we're going to see incremental change over time, and that's where the risk starts to come in. So I guess the purpose of the DAP approach, the Dynamic Adaptive Pathway Planning approach, is having those signals and triggers that spur us into action at the right points in time. Because we don't need to address everything at once. We can do it gradually over time.
I'm happy to move it. Pauline's happy to second it. We've got a question from Tyrone, then Sarah.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to my colleague Councillor Scandrett's point, though, just to clarify, I completely understand why he's asking that question. What is the tipping point? But I suppose what I just want to get clarity from you is that we're not really talking about people sitting on beachfront property. What we're talking about is access to productive farmland, and quite a lot of it, right? So it's kind of a slightly different conversation than just houses. This is actually like stuff that is economically important, right? I mean, that's the kind of properties we're trying to get access to here.
Sure, yeah, and I guess that's part of the challenge with answering a question like the one that Councillor Scandrett put forward, is that there'll be different tipping points for different communities in different parts of our district, and there's no way to provide a sort of blanket statement on a time frame at which people should be worried. Yeah.
Good. Sarah, please. Okay, righto. So thank you very much. Any debate, discussion? Anyone wants? Pauline?
Just to say thank you for an incredible amount of work, long period of time. I'm just simply going to say what you just said before, the dynamic adaptive pathway approach. That says it all. Mm-hmm. And I think, particularly having that communication now with the residents, it's an excellent project. So thank you very much.
Mm. Yes, and once 5 by Paul, Sarah. Yep.
Kia ora. This does wrap up what's been a really long and really thorough process. Started initially sort of maybe 4 years ago with the adaptation framework, and then the work that was happening with the individual coastal panel. So I'd like to thank the staff that have been involved, and there's been a couple of changes over time, so all of the staff that have been involved in that. The coastal panel and the STAG have put an enormous amount of time and effort, and I'd like to thank them for that as well. Thanks to the members of the working group, which has been around for, this is the second term of the working group, so all of the members that have participated in that and helped with the guidance and the knowledge and stuff through that process over time. It does take a while, but we know from the work that happened or didn't happen with the coastal hazards plan change way back with the Independent Hearings Panel years ago, that if you simply come in and say, we know what's best, let's just do this, and it's impacting people in these coastal areas, it doesn't go down well. You don't get buy-in, you don't have community ownership and understanding of the hazards in place. So this careful process where we work with communities to help engage them, inform them, they get to ask lots of questions and really understand what the issues are, and having community representatives helping coming up with the solutions is what we talk about all the time as being the ideal way to engage our communities. It is more time consuming and a little bit more resource hungry, but you get a much better outcome at the end. It's not certain. We know that that climate change is happening. We know that the sea is rising, but we can't say exactly when. And I tend to liken it to some people to a car trip across town. Like if you're travelling from Sumner to Harewood in a rush hour morning, you kind of know roughly how long it might take. You can look at Google and it can say, hey, listen, we've seen lots of people travel across town in the past, and we think that this is how it might be for you. But there might be a bit of congestion, there might be an accident somewhere, those kind of things. And so you're not quite sure exactly how long it's going to take to get across there. And that's kind of what this is. And you might get halfway and there's been an accident, and so you veer off and you take a slightly different route. And that's all this is, but in big scale. Modelling's important. Planning ahead is really important if we want good outcomes. And so is working with our communities to help plan for what are uncertain futures. Thanks.
Okay, and I'll let Tim have a say.
Thank you. Look, it's and thank you to the staff. It is a hell of a lot of work, and it's a real. I've learnt so much just by reading your information. But for me, what really is the good thing about this and the other conversations around it is that we've got to lift our game as humans with regards to our carbon footprint, our waste, our recycling, and what all our companies are doing through and led by CCHL is really fantastic. To have the largest corporation technically in the South Island leading from the front. We have to start respecting our planet a lot more. Unfortunately, as Tom said, we may have a metre sea level rise, but we don't know when. It is going to happen if we do not change the way we behave. And I think that what we're doing overall with this information as a family of companies is excellent. And I think that's the really important thing for me. So thank you.
Okay, I'll just finish off and then I'll put it. Phenomenal amount of work over a very long time. This is the first one of these plans that we're having, and I think there is a number of them. So this is the first one. The main thing, we've got a stake in the ground. It's going to happen. When it's going to happen, don't know, but the day the Old Wharf Road gets inundated with water, that will probably be the trigger point to say, we better have the road lifted up. But at least we've got a plan, and we've brought the community along with us, rather than, as Sarah said, just saying, this is what you do. So we've done that. So with that, I will put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Thank you. Carried. Brilliant. Right. Karakia.